Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're looking at the 2016 RAV4 Hybrid. Now the RAV4, right now, it's the #1 selling compact SUV in its class, ahead of the Ford Escape, ahead of the CR-V from Honda, and just about everything else that it competes against. And this being the hybrid, it's an all-new model this year and something that Toyota customers had been telling them that they wanted for some time. And when I went to the launch last year, they told us that they expected to sell about 10 to 15% more RAV4s as a result of having this hybrid. And if you look at the sales numbers this month over last year, that's exactly what they're doing. As we look at the styling, they actually made quite a few changes for 2016, mainly in the face here. As you can tell, it's got a completely different grille design, new headlights, and they've actually raised the profile of this front end a little bit, so it wasn't sloping down so much. They wanted to give it a more off-roady, rugged look that told customers that it was tougher and maybe a little bit more adventurous. It definitely looks more adventurous, I think. It's definitely more distinctive. And if you get down here and you look it in the face, it's really got a soul going on almost, especially when the headlights are on. It almost has that sort of a Terminator 2 quality to it. But that really goes to the headlight design. And on this one here, the XLE has standard halogen headlights, and down here we've got fog lights. You can get an LED headlight on this if you get up into the limited trim grade. Now, one thing they didn't really do is make the hybrid look significantly different than the regular gas model, and that's something, a bit of a change for Toyota. In the past, the hybrids always really had a distinctive edge to them, and so really all you get here is you get the emblems here have the blue highlight on them. It's got special emblems down the side and at the rear. The only other big thing on this one is on the XLE, you get a unique 17-inch alloy wheel. Now, if you go up to the limited hybrid, it has the same 18-inch wheels that you're going to get on the limited gas. So this particular model is the only one that really has a distinctive look, if that, from the gas model. At the back end of the RAV4, a couple new things for this year. First of all, new taillights, nice LED design, very distinctive, especially at night. The other major thing is down here in the bumper, they reduced the level of black plastic. They actually lowered that black plastic lighting down to give it a more premium look, something that people actually commented on when they did consumer trials on the vehicle. They actually, less black plastic, please. It's a nice refresh, and it really is quite a distinctive look, I think. You can't look at the back of this vehicle and say it looks just like anything else. The first thing you notice when you sit behind the wheel of the RAV4 is the fact that it feels very much like a car. This generation is a little bit less, upright and tall like the old RAV4 was, where you felt like you were definitely in a more top-heavy SUV. Here, you're definitely sitting down in this vehicle, not on it. A lot of people like that because it's a lot more confidence-inspiring than that sort of tipsy, top-heavy, perched up high feel. This is, just feels more safe and secure, and it's comfortable too. You do have tilt and telescoping wheel. These seats are manually adjustable, but once you find the spot that you want, they're very comfortable. I think they're very supportive, and I like the fact that I have a tester with cloth seats. Most of the time I have leather, or with Toyota it would be their Softex, their simulated leather, not real leather. But in this case I have the cloth, which I prefer that because here in the summer when it's hot, it's actually very comfortable. Now the design of this interior, it's, I hate to say typical Toyota, but it is. I used to have this old pachinko machine, and this reminds me a lot of it. And what I mean by that is, the styling just is, it's different. It's different than almost anything else. The ergonomics is good. The layout of all the controls, reaching things, doing that type of thing, actually living here and working here, it's very well laid out. And this does have the upgraded audio system and touchscreen, and the controls work pretty well. The HVAC is right here. This does have climate control. One of the things I like about this is just the overall layout of things. There's a place down here for your phone. It's easy to reach, it's easy to access, it's not hard to get in and out of with your phone. All the plugs you need, if you plug it in, they're right there. And the cup holders, well, there's one here and there's one back here, and I sort of like that. They've sort of gone a different route. A lot of car makers like to bunch them together, side by side, whatever, and even though they're separate, it actually works. And this one up here is actually shaped like a coffee cup. It's got a space for a real coffee cup with a handle on it, so if that's what you're bringing along with you, it'll still work out, and that's kind of nice. The one thing I'd point out is, while the fit and finish in here is very good, there's a lot of hard plastics. If you sort of go around here and I mean, they've put soft trim right here and in a couple other strategic places where you're typically going to accidentally touch the interior, but you could do a drum set in here almost. And at least I will say they're well put together cheap plastics, but cheap plastics nonetheless. The rear seat of the RAV4 is very typical of this class. You feel like you're in a compact car, not necessarily like you're in an SUV, and that's because the actual size of this cabin isn't that much different than a car. It's just up higher. So what that means is you have a pretty low seating position, even though this seat is actually designed to be up a little bit higher because it needs to accommodate that hybrid battery underneath. The good news is you do have plenty of leg room here, and these seats are about halfway forward, halfway back, so there's plenty of room for them to come back further, and I'd still have plenty of space. And because this seat's sitting down pretty low, there's actually plenty of headroom back here, not really affected by the fact that there's a sunroof there. Now, one thing I do want to point out, there is a nice feature back here. You have an adjustable back rake, which can work both ways. You can pull it forward if you really need to pack something big back there, but somebody can actually really lean back and relax if you're on a long road trip. And that's a nice feature. You've got here a fold-down armrest, and it can be up in case you have that center passenger. And really, the only big complaint about the rear cabin back here is there are no HVAC vents here. What Toyota's done is they have this big vent up in the center of the dash that they call the rear seat vent. It supposedly shoots air between your passengers up front, and it gets back here. It's a gimmick. It doesn't really do anything any more than any of the other vents. It doesn't really shoot the air back here. If it's 110 degrees here in Arizona, you really need vents back there. The rear cargo area, like in all competitors, can be expanded with a 60-40 split fold-down seat. In the hybrid, the cargo area is slightly less due to the raised rear seat, and as you can see, the floor isn't entirely flat as a result. Under the floor, however, is a temporary spare tire, even with a hybrid, a good thing in a world where some only offer a can of Fix-A-Flat and an air pump. You'll also notice a standard 12-volt battery is mounted back here as well. When it comes to scoring this interior, yeah, I complained about the hard plastics a little bit, but Toyota's very smart. They know that, yeah, they can get away with those hard plastics and still have the #1 selling vehicle in its segment. They just have to put them together in such a way that they're not going to fall off. And that's what's going on here. This is a very comfortable place to be. It's very functional, and there's a reasonable amount of storage, even though it is slightly less than the standard RAV4. So I give this interior 4 out of 5 stars. Technology in our RAV4 was the optioned Entune premium audio system with navigation. The system works well enough, and it's easy enough to operate and understand the menus. The audio quality, though, really isn't up to the name premium, however, and connectivity doesn't yet have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto functionality. Technology comes in at 4 of 5 stars. Under the hood of the RAV4 Hybrid is an Atkinson Cycle 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine combined with Toyota's legendary hybrid CVT, or continuously variable transmission. In it are 2 electric motors which can operate alone for maximum efficiency or along with the gasoline engine for maximum thrust, which happens to be 194 horsepower. All-wheel drive is standard on the RAV4 Hybrid, afforded by an additional electric motor drive unit mounted at the rear axle. Now, because this is a hybrid, the powertrain on this is completely different than a regular four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive vehicle. In this particular case, there's no drive shaft here connecting the front and rear axles. This has a completely separate drivetrain up front than it does in the back. In the back, of course, there's just an electric motor driving the rear wheels, so there's no physical connection between the front and rear axles relative to the drivetrain. So it really made me curious to find out how this thing performs in traction challenge situations. And while I don't do this very often, I have this test right here, which is the one wheel up, one wheel down test. And it puts the vehicle on a mogul up here where it takes all the weight off of one of the front wheels and all the weight off of one of the rear wheels such that the vehicle can teeter-totter. And it forces the powertrain to divvy up power to one of the front wheels and one of the rear wheels to get the vehicle unstuck or moving again. And so it's a really good test for regular off-road vehicles, for regular all-wheel drive SUVs. But in this case, I have no idea how this is going to perform. I'm really curious to see how this particular drivetrain format actually works here. So here we go. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in sport mode, because my assumption is that's how to get the most power out of this particular drivetrain. There is no four-wheel drive lock or any kind of mode control for off-road here. That's not what this is meant for. So let's see how it goes. Now I'm just going to crawl up here slowly because I've got to get this thing positioned just right so that one of the front wheels comes off the ground and that rear wheel behind me gets either off the ground or to where there is no traction. Okay, here we are. We're just sort of stuck right here. Nothing's happening. Front wheel's spinning over there, so I'm gonna, no, not really working too well. Let's try it again. Okay, now, no, it doesn't want to do it. Now, I normally reserve this test more for off-road oriented vehicles that actually have drivetrain locking features and, well, vehicles that are really marketed for off-road driving. This one was tested purely because I was curious to see how it would work. Because in subsequent tries, I was actually able to make it through this spot, and the fact the vehicle really isn't meant for this kind of thing, its performance in this test isn't really being held against it in my scoring. This is the most powerful RAV4 you can get, so the question becomes, how does it go? And 60. Well, it actually has some modicum of power. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's faster than the regular RAV4, though it might be just a little bit. It doesn't feel it. And the big reason for that is because this has the CVT. It doesn't shift. You don't get those impressions of speed, those impressions that, well, anything's happening really. You just get this slow, oozing increase in motion. And that's it. Now, are buyers of this vehicle going to care that it has a CVT? Probably not. It's a RAV4, so it's not necessarily going to be something that driving enthusiasts are after, and it's a hybrid, which lessens that even further. This is going to be a vehicle that's an appliance for people, and in that way, it performs quite well. At speed, as you can tell, it's actually pretty quiet. You only get that leaf blower effect if you really, really push it. Now, if you want a traditional driving experience, this does have a manual shift gate that gives you 6 simulated shifts. They're pretend shifts. When you play with it here, they're not really snappy shifts. They're just sort of, well, yeah, okay, shifts. Anyway, now it really gets to fuel economy. That's what this vehicle's about. So I'm not going to belabor that whole it's not shifting thing anymore. Fuel economy, this is rated at 33 mpg combined. Now the Limited actually is rated a little bit higher. That was my camera equipment back there. In this case, during the week with this thing, I got 32 mpg combined, just one less than promised, so it still performed reasonably well. Overall, I give this drivetrain 4 out of 5 stars because it's still pretty refined for a hybrid. How this thing rides is actually pretty impressive for any vehicle in terms of its overall refinement. I'm out here on a back road cruising about 55, 60. It's just nice and quiet, it feels solid, and for what's normally a top-heavy SUV, it feels remarkably car-like, and it's just stable. It's very confidence-inspiring. It doesn't have that sort of side-to-side rolling that you get. It doesn't have forward-to-rear pitching like some have. It's just a very solid overall picture, I'd say. But what I will point out is it does have a few characteristics that's different from the standard RAV4. The first one being the fact that these tires not quite as grippy as you might find on some of the other RAV4 models. Therefore, if you really try to push it out here on some curves, you're going to find that you don't have quite as much grip. The other thing is this has drive-by-wire brakes, has electronic brake control, which means that the brake pedal's tied to the computer, and the computer manages your inputs with an electronic brake control unit that doles out hydraulic pressure in addition to regenerative braking with the hybrid system. So the braking comes by way of a number of different pieces of hardware. So what that gives you is a completely different feel. So when you hit the brakes and you come into a corner, especially if you really lay into them, you don't get that sense of feedback that you get from regular brakes. They seem to work just fine, but they just feel a little bit different compared to normal brakes. Something to point out, but overall, they've done a good job here, I think. It doesn't do anything wrong. It's nothing fabulous, but nothing wrong. Chassis comes in at 4 or 5 stars. Rating the quality here was pretty easy. Apart from the hard plastics of the interior, the RAV4 exhibits excellent fit and finish inside and out and was rattle-free in our week of testing. The doors have the typical Toyota hollowness to them, the only major gripe. Quality Fuel score comes in at 4 or 5 stars. Now when it comes to safety, the 2016 RAV4 is rated by the IIHS as a top safety pick plus, their highest rating. It performs with good scores on all of their crash tests, including the brutal small overlap crash, and it also offers a superior level of crash prevention systems as an option. Alright folks, wrapping it up for the RAV4 Hybrid, I think I do now know what it is about this vehicle that, well, makes it the #1 selling vehicle in its class, and it really is probably the combination of Toyota's legendary quality, which, real or not, most people believe in. It's an appliance that's going to last forever. Like the Maytag, you're never going to have to call the repairman. The other thing is, it doesn't do anything wrong, really. I mean, it's not the best at any one thing, but it doesn't do anything wrong. So that's a pretty winning combination in America these days. Now that said, looking at the specs here, just under $30,000. This one, the only option being that upgraded audio system. Probably a lot of people are going to go for that, more so for the functionality that it offers more than the audio quality, because it just isn't that great. It's not that bad either, just like I said. Fuel economy, 32 mpg for the week. That is a little bit less than it's promised, and about 5 or 6 more than you're going to get with the regular RAV4. Regular RAV4, pretty good value. Here, I'm not so sure that pencils unless you put a lot of miles on it. So I put value at 4 stars. When you put that in with everything else we've already talked about, we're at 4 stars for the review. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Folks, I got to tell you something. I'm a driving enthusiast. I really crave and hunger for cars that excite me. And the kind of cars that typically excite me are high performance cars, but more importantly, high quality cars. Cars that have a high level of engineering and engagement. Maybe it's styling, maybe it's the way they feel, the way they smell inside. I'm into the high quality tool kind of thing, right? So if I went to go buy tools, I'd probably go for the Snap-on instead of Craftsman. My point is, Toyota, they're known as these reliable cars that you should buy. Consumer Reports loves them. The IIHS loves them. They're perfect in every way. They're not exciting. They're nothing that's going to be good for date night, but, you know, it's never going to break. The reason I say all that is because even me, the driving enthusiast, I've owned a Toyota before, actually a couple of them. And the reason I owned them is because at the time I needed something affordable. I needed something I knew I could depend on, and it didn't need to be exciting. It just needed to be a car that I could get into every morning and it was going to work, and it didn't cost me a mint. So there you go. That's what Toyota's about. Anyway, if you like the test drive you just saw, click on the link right here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I test drive 1 or 2 cars a week. Plus, we have a new video almost every other day. There's always something new. So stay tuned.